Hey gang, today's going to be my first video in a multi-video little instructional about how to trim, prep, and smoke jerky. Here we're looking at a flank steak. I want to say this guy is just under 2 pounds, 1.9 something. You're going to want to take one of your leaner cuts of meat. Flank works, flat iron works. I've even had good results with something as simple as a top London broil. Essentially the less fat, the more whole muscle, the better. We're kind of just trimming away some of this fat here. Not too concerned about that piece. Essentially, a little fat's going to be okay, but it's not the texture you're looking for when you're making jerky. Here, we'll trim in there. A little bit of that out. Some of this stuff is just surface. We can leave that, you can cut that, your choice. But realistically, what you're really trying to make sure is no fat pockets. Some of this stuff's just going to be sitting on the surface. You can pick that up with your finger. Other stuff, you're going to kind of have to trim. Get rid of that. Okay. This guy's looking pretty good. Flip it one more time. Just make sure we didn't miss anything. Some of this fat like that, just pops right off the top. You're essentially just looking for, once you can get it largely fat-free without actually taking away any of the meat. That just came off. Didn't even need a knife. Okay, so this is about as fat-free as you'd be looking for. So for this point here, we're going to throw this in the freezer for about 30 minutes. You don't want to actually let it freeze. What you want to do is start to the point where this all gets a little crusty, but you can still feel that there's unfrozen meat down in there. That's the point where we're going to pull it out. Make sure to lay it flat in the freezer, because at the end of the day, you'll learn more about this in the next part, but you want it as flat and uniform as possible. So I'll make sure the grain's lined up, you don't have a corner stretched out screwing up the grain like you would over here. From that point, pretty much just like that. Nice, little compact. More so what you're going to be looking for when you put it in the freezer is that the grain is straight. You can see the grain if you're not too familiar. It's that right in there. You see how it kind of looks like wood. Just make sure that those lines are relatively straight. Gonna throw this bad boy in the freezer, and I'll see you guys in about 30 or so minutes. Alright gang, 30 minutes later, here is our half-frozen steak. So what I'll start by doing here, I'll just cut that flat. I'm not too crazy about that end. This guy here, we'll leave that. So there's two different ways to cut jerky. It all depends on the texture you're looking for at the end. If you like tougher jerky, you're going to go with the grain. Much like the same way we laid it out earlier. I'm hoping you guys can see it now. That side's a little more apparent, but this side's going to be easier to cut from. So if you're looking for tender jerky, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to cut with the grain. Consistency is key here. We're going to do a couple pieces like such, just to kind of square this up a little bit. Okay. So when you look at this, you can see that the grain, there's some give to it. That's where you're going to get your tenderness. When compared to something like this, let's cut down the grain now. That piece is going to be what it is. What you're really looking for to do here is about 1/4 inch strips. Compared to this one, we gave that a pull. Nothing. That's going to be your tougher jerky. So that's personally kind of what I like. You're also going to want to use a stiff knife here. A flexible knife or a knife with a lot of give isn't going to really get you what you're looking for. You look at the consistency on these, once again, no give. Those are good, decent strips of jerky. It'll somewhat start to move on you, so you're going to have to straighten it again from time to time, especially as you get towards the back end. Alright, consistency is all we're looking for. You want everything to dry at about the same rate. So that one got a little screwy. That one's a little thick. Not crazy about that, but, is what it is. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to slice that guy. Try to make the most of our meat here. I'm going to do one of those. Sharper your knife, the better, too. but I cannot overemphasize the freezing of the meat. That makes everything so much easier. This guy here, generally I'd cut my meat all the same direction, but I'm going to try to show you guys a little something just for educational sake. So this guy here is going to be cut tenderwise. Once again, tenderwise is against the grain. It's going to allow your meat to fall apart better. Keep this sucker nice and flat. This is a thick cut over here, so that guy's going to be ready to fall apart by the time that's off the grill. Naturally, I'm doing some things that aren't all that safe with a knife. Try not to repeat me. You know better, I know better, but okay. Make sure they're all actually separated too. You know, you don't want any membrane attaching any of them to each other. This guy here might be our last real good piece. This piece here I'm not crazy about. It's the end. A bunch of fat all over it. Not bad, but at the same time, you know, even if you look into the grain, there's some fat in there. It's, I'll probably give that to my dog once we're done with the video here. Alright. There's our cuts. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to lay it out as flat as possible. You know, try to close all the gaps. Alright, there we go. All flat and laid out. You know, it doesn't really matter too much. So what I have here, this is kind of cheating today. Sometimes I cure my jerky, sometimes I don't. This right here is just a mix I picked up from Cabela's. It's made by a company called High Mountain. What we got is just a spicy lime blend. This is a mix between some cure and some flavoring. Depends. This jerky is probably going to sit for a while, so I'm going to actually go ahead and cure this. If I'm making it for something like a party or a cookout, I generally don't bother curing it, but you know, this might be in the cupboard for a week or two before it's done. Key to putting it in a shaker. Everything's just going to go easier. You know, you're going to sit here, do one of these. Okay. You try for even. Okay, used about half my bottle. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip everything. Okay, now that we've gone ahead and done that, all flipped, we're looking at the other side. We're going to go ahead and once again, just spritz it. Try for as even as possible. There's always going to be some clumping, but we'll go through that in the next part. Alright gang, this is also a perfect time to put on any of your own spices that you want to add, you know, if you are doing a store-bought. This is one of my favorites. I've made this stuff myself. It's a pepper blend out of my garden. It's the spiciest stuff you ever tasted, I promise you that much. Weakest thing in here is ghost pepper. On that note, if anybody likes spicy food, you should probably hit me up. I've got too much of this stuff. So, probably sneezing here in a second. Won't kid yourself, this is going to be bad. I should be doing this over the oven hood, but it's not where I have the camera set up. Oh, good gravy, that's spicy. Okay. Oh, wow. There's that. From here, what you want to do, throw it all in a gallon Ziploc bag. I prefer bags. Some folks will use a marinade, in which case, you know, use a Pyrex or whatever. I commonly will do a dry rub. Just kind of works out a little better in my mind. From here, you know, realistically, you'll just knead the meat around, make sure everything's nice and even. You know, get some air out, seal that bag up. You shouldn't have to really spend too much time kneading it. From this point, I'll probably put it in the fridge. I'll probably knead it one more time tonight before we actually throw it on the smoker tomorrow, which will be our second video of all this. Alright, so here we go. 2 pounds of flank steak. Ready for jerky. Got it marinated. Got it cured. We're just going to throw this in the freezer and forget about it. Oh, excuse me. Throw it in the fridge and forget about it.